Wednesday, July 19th, and this is Geeknights. Tonight we talk about comics with 100 bullets. Also, instead of a news, we've got a double geekback about Connecticon.
Let's do this.
Well, we actually are going to do a double geekback today, since after the Connecticon coverage, we got not one but two good and interesting emails about it.
Oh, it looks like this geekback segment has really taken off.
Yeah, well, considering that we got a lot of audio feedback before that we never actually answered on the show, we just sent emails back.
Yeah. You know, I guess when you get emails, you like to respond to them, but eventually you just kind of have to resist the urge.
Yep, so keep in mind that if we don't respond to your email, it's probably because we're just going to force ourselves to talk about it on the show instead of answering you personally.
And if we do respond, your chances of being on the show are maybe like 50-50. And then in the distant future, if we have a hajillion listeners at some point, then we're probably not going to respond to anybody. That's what the forums are for.
We'll start paying Mr. Period, and he'll filter all the email for us.
Yeah, all right. Here, only, all the emails go to him, and then forward us the ones that are worth reading.
Watch, he'll only forward us the ones that have perfect grammar and spelling. Yeah. We'll get like one email a year.
That'd be awesome.
All right, anyway, our first geek back, and they're both about Connecticon now, is from Michael Moore. Not Michael Moore.
I was going to say.
Yeah, apparently people make fun of him all the time for that. But no, it's Michael Moore of Abstract Gender, a webcomic.
Okay.
Hey, I met you guys at Connecticon when I went over to talk to Yuko on Saturday. Not sure if you remember me. Well, we do. But I'm a webcomic artist and was in the Uber Webcomics panel. I've actually been doing it for the last 3 years. Of the 3 I was in, this was probably number 2. Last year's was probably the worst. But I do think that a lot of the criticisms of the con were pretty dead on, and your ideas for the webcomic panel would have made it a lot better. I've been listening to the recent podcast about the con, and the last 2 years it's been in the convention center. The first year I went, it was at a college nearby, and I think it was the Hartford College or something.
It's University of Hartford, because when it was there one year, I was doing like I was a counselor at a summer camp that was there also. And I remember being at camp that Friday playing kickball, and there was like an Inuyasha cosplayer running around outside.
Nah.
But I didn't actually go to the con that year. I just went home that night because I was tired of taking care of bratty kids all day.
Yeah, Mike obviously isn't a native since he didn't know all that. But anyway, actually, no, he says, but anyway, when it was there, it was a 24-hour con, and that was really cool. And as nice and shiny as the convention center is, the college probably would work better for the con, since back then they had tons of rooms, like each video game had its own room, DDR had 2 rooms, and it ran 24 hours a day. But I guess the problem with the college is that there weren't any big areas to do main events. I do sort of feel like this year they may have been the worst one so far panel-wise, but that may be just me, because there used to be all sorts of meet and greet panels with all the webcomic peoples, usually doubled up, blah, blah, blah. Now, I'll note, that there were a bunch of meet and greet panels. We didn't actually go to any of them because most of them were on Sunday.
Yeah, also, he's totally right about University of Hartford not having too many big rooms. I mean, I know a bunch of the buildings there, and it's really, they don't have like giant auditoriums or big wide open rooms at all that I know of. Maybe the gymnasium. And then they have some outside fields that you could use, but if there's bad weather, your con's ruined.
Yeah, he just goes on for a while to talk about how much he likes Geeknights, and hopefully he'll see us at Otakon and check out our panels and all that.
Well, he's definitely going to see us at Otakon. Everyone's going to see us there.
Well, I think it's if he
Except for the blind people. The blind people will not see us at Otakon.
Well, they'd better hear us.
Yeah, that's right.
If they're blind and deaf, well, we'll poke them.
Yep.
Yeah, and anyway, since he said he may or may not plug us, that was Michael Moore of Abstract Gender, abstractgender.com.
If you want to read his webcomic, which I have never read and therefore cannot form an opinion about.
Yep. I guess all I really have to say is that I do think that Connecticon hopefully will do something to make the Uber webcomics panel as good as it apparently was in days of yore.
Yeah, it's one thing if something has always sucked and then they can't make it better. It's like, okay, well, you can't really say anything. But if someone had a good thing going and they failed to maintain it, it's just kind of sad.
Yeah, but actually, the second email, which I rushed through the first one because this geekback is much longer, much more thorough, and also much more official, probably answers that question in better detail. This is from Brianna Ben, the vice chairperson of Connecticon.
Holy crap.
She listened to our show on Connecticon, and they had quite a bit to say. I don't think I'm going to read the entire thing.
Can we break it down point by point?
Yep, I'll break it down, starting with the webcomics in the dealer's room. Because remember, we talked that all the big webcomics were in the dealer's room and the small ones were in the artist colony.
Yep.
Quote, Bigger comics get a bit better treatment. They do more for the convention. They may get a free table in the artist colony or the dealer's room based on their popularity. Additionally, anyone can buy a table in either location. Bigger comics usually have a bit more money and buy a table in the dealer's room. Smaller people, some people feel we are unfair to the smaller comic, but they miss the boat entirely. We help foster the growth of any and all webcomics, but yeah, the bigger names are going to have a bigger presence. Now, yeah, we really weren't complaining that the big names were in the dealer's room as opposed to the artist alley. It's more that it did seem to detract from the artist alley.
Yeah, that was my main problem with it is like, usually like at Otakon, you go to the artist alley, right? And the artist alley is anything that's not dealing. The only webcomic I can think of that was in the dealer's room at Otakon was Mega Tokyo, and that's because he was mostly dealing his merchandise and his stuff.
True, but yet at Katsucon, there were many, many webcomic artists in the dealer's room. I think it depends a lot on the con.
I think it does too, but yeah, the only problem with that is that the artist alley is kind of, marginalized.
Yep. Now, in terms of the parking lot, quote, we hate the parking lot, but we can't restructure the damn thing.
Yeah, I'm not complaining. Connecticon has nothing to do with its sucky parking lot.
Yeah.
It's completely the convention center's sucky parking lot.
Now, in regards to food, quote, I am told that there will be a mall with a food court built across the street from the CCC.
Hallelujah.
It really sucks about the no outside food rule. They don't even let us bring in food for our staff members, guests, or volunteers.
Asshats.
We recommend...
What if you want to have a pizza party?
Can't. We recommend the Arch Street Tavern across the street where food costs roughly the same, but it is much better quality.
I didn't know it was there.
Yeah, I mean,
was
honestly...
there anything like in the con book or anywhere that said if you want to eat, go to the Arch Street Tavern?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Because I know Otakon in the little book gives you a guide to like food in the area, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
In fact, they do an extensive thing. And actually, I would really recommend that Connecticon at least have one small section in the con book detailing the nearest food that isn't terrible.
Yeah, don't just get... was there a map of the surrounding area? Or
Actually, this idea is kind of crazy. I came up with this just now, so it's not fully thought out. Now, obviously, the reason that the convention center doesn't allow outside food is so they can make a bunch of money from, ripping people off with crappy food. Every convention center does it. And the reason they charge so much money is pretty commonly known that business travelers don't care how much money it costs. Their company picks it all up. So it's kind of a scam for convention centers to make a bunch of money off of businesses. Doesn't really work so well for anime cons. And honestly, Otakon is really the only con that has the money and the clout to tell the convention center, hey, that doesn't work, do something different.
Yeah, this is the first year where they're really trying to muscle them over into doing something different with the food.
Yep, which apparently was helped a lot by the fact that a different person is in charge of the food now.
Yeah, but I mean, seriously, let's say you were a business and you were taking out a room or two in the convention center for like a big meeting or something, you could get your own caterer if you want. They can't.
No, you can't.
I mean... like, there are ways you can pay to get your own caterer in there.
Usually most convention centers require you to get any and all food through them.
Yeah, but I mean, there's food that you can get through them other than,
Oh, yeah, but it's horribly expensive, I guarantee it.
Yeah.
But anyway, here's a crazy idea. Now, obviously you couldn't do this on the grounds of the convention center.
Doy.
But depending on the actual city's laws, it might be possible to get a permit to have some sort of food vending just outside the convention center and sponsor it by the con.
Yeah, but, there's the problem of people without badges taking advantage of it.
No, you charge money. You just charge a reasonable amount. I haven't thought it through at all, and I'm going to think about this because even if it wouldn't work for Connecticon, there are probably a lot of other cons where they could pull something off like that.
Yeah, a hotel con, you can get catering, I know.
Yeah, Anime Central used to always have a green room that was full of entire meals for free for anyone who went to the con.
Yeah, and also a college con, you can do it out on the lawn. Yeah, it really depends on the specific geographic area. Like, let's say I was Otakon, right? And I wasn't as big as I was, taking up the entire convention center and all. And let's say I just used like one or two rooms in the convention center in Baltimore. What I would do to get food is take out one room in a nearby hotel for the food. And then if people wanted food, they could just walk over the little bridge to like the Sheraton or something where we have food.
Yeah, I'll think about this more because there's got to be a way.
Yeah, like there's that Marriott attached to the convention center, right? If you took out one room in the Marriott and in Connecticut and put food in there, would that work? I mean, you can cater whoever you want to the Marriott, right?
See, I actually don't know all the details. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's something to check up on.
Yeah, I mean, there's also the liability of serving food and all the trouble around that.
Of course.
But again, I mean, we can't blame Connecticon for the food situation because
No.
obviously the CCC is being very heavy-handed.
Well, every convention center with its unions and its big fat hand
Yeah,
of heaviness.
$50 to get a power cable. Yeah.
Big B's convention center fist. Whatever.
All right, on to the next bit. Quote, FYI, Otakon now costs $60 pre-reg, and they only take pre-reg. Now,
Okay, it's $50 if you pre-reg before July 7th.
July 7th.
Too
So
late. It's $60 now.
over 14,000 people pre-registered for Otakon back when it was $50 this year.
Yep.
So less than half of the attendees will pay the full $60 price. To go on, Anime Next and Anime Boston cost the same amount as Connecticon. Connecticon does not have the same number in attendance yet, so it gets smaller income. However, we believe that we provide programming that equals or in some way exceeds that of these other conventions.
See, I have to disagree on that last point, saying that their programming equals or exceeds. I mean, Anime Next had Rintaro and Murayama and Japanese guests, and it's like one level above Connecticon in programming. It's hard to deny that. Anime Boston as well. I mean, the American voice actors who usually go to every single convention weren't at Connecticon.
A few of them were.
Yeah, but not many. It's usually you get like the same 10 people. Connecticon had maybe 2 or 3.
Yeah.
If you just look at the guests and you look at the fact that a lot of panels were thrown together and run by staff, you can't. I just can't agree with that last statement.
Yeah, I mean the gaming helped a lot, but I mean
the gaming did help a lot, considering that a gaming convention of almost that caliber, it kind of evens it out.
Even Animazement, which I don't remember actually, but I'm pretty sure it was either less than or at the very most it cost the same as Connecticon. Yet their programming was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, who was that guy you hung out with there?
Oh, they had Akira Kamiya and just a pile of awesome Japanese guests. They also had amazing panels. I mean, the panels were well done and well researched. Off the top of my head, there was a geisha panel, and it was run by an actual teacher who had studied this and done a thesis on it, and she really knew her stuff, and she put on an amazing lecture.
Ah, yeah, see?
And almost every panel was of that quality. While here at Connecticon, I mean, not to snipe, but the only panel we went to was someone who was forced to do the panel at the last minute.
And looking at the list of panels, none of them even seemed interesting or exciting,
Yeah, I guess it's just that the con does feel a bit overpriced to us still.
Yeah. It's not overpriced in terms of just comparing the price to other conventions. It's comparing the price to, when you consider what's at the convention. And the fact that, hey, your con has less people. Maybe it's because of the price. Maybe if you lowered the price, you would get more people.
Yeah, I mean, I just think Otakon and the amount of programming Otakon has, I honestly would pay upwards of $150 for a weekend of Otakon without even
Otakon
thinking.
is really a deal. It's sort of it's like a big steal for all the fans, but other cons are not.
All right, now moving on here, the no $5 bill issue. Quote, because the convention center requested an additional $20,000 up front this year, we did not have extra cash on hand to get lots of fives. We had to borrow roughly $6,000 from family and friends in order to meet the initial pre-con costs. We had foresight, but no money. Research Save Connecticon for more information on that.
Oh, that's right. Save Connecticon was that thing that...
Well, all the webcomic artists got together and raised a bunch of money to save Connecticon from bankruptcy after last year's debacle.
Yeah, it's like the convention center requested an additional $20,000. Again, I think we talked about this before, was that either Connecticon failed to read their contract properly, and they should have known that they would have cost more money and therefore probably shouldn't have had it at the convention center, or if the convention center did something that was against the contract, Connecticon should have gotten a lawyer.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I
I
would have called a lawyer that minute.
And normally I would say false dichotomy, saying it was either this or that. But when I, research Save Connecticon and I look at what the situation was from the available public information, those are the only two things I can conclude, is that
I'd really lean toward it being the latter just because of other things I've read and heard about the convention center. But even then, I really would have called a lawyer and fought it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but anyway,
yeah.
Get back on the point. Yeah, I can see the convention center asking for the additional $20,000, especially after what happened last year.
Yep.
And as for the fives, I don't know. I guess I would have set up something. In the very least, you could have had a bunch of people, ready, or maybe Friday night, take all the money you've got from the con, all the cash on hand, take it to the bank first thing in the morning Saturday, exchange it for fives, and then come back, and then you would have been good to go.
Yeah, because on Friday, a lot of the people showing up were probably pre-reg type people who have already paid, and then...
Yeah, just set up runners, send people to the bank constantly getting fives as long as you need them, because it's not like they had a bunch of fives and ran out. It was that we were some of the first people to register, and they didn't have any already.
Yep.
But yeah, there's not much you can do if you're already short on money. I really think the con would be better off being outside of the convention center for a couple more years. Then they'd have a lot more money to spend on all these other niceties, and then when they jump to the convention center, they'll have enough people to just pay for it and not even worry about it.
I really, without knowing any of the finances or accounting of the convention at all, I have to say that if you have less attendees than, Anime Next, Anime Boston, and other area conventions, you're charging just as much money. You have, less, you're not at the same level of programming. You really shouldn't be in a more expensive venue.
Plus, honestly, I think it would really foster the convention experience, at least for a few more years, to have it in a hotel. Because, like our previous Geekback said, going 24 hours in a con like this is huge, because most of the people who go are webcomic people who just want to hang out all night with their webcomic friends.
And also, your gaming is really strong. And if your gaming can go 24 hours as opposed to people having to stop and pick it up again, that's also huge.
If you wait in a hotel until you get to the point where the hotel is too small, and then you jump, everyone's going to follow you. I can guarantee it, because at that point, that means that more people want to go to the con than could fit, and you have to go to a bigger venue. I just don't think that Connecticon is big enough to need to be in a big venue, and I really think it's overpriced for what you get.
Yeah, there have to be big hotels in the capital of Connecticut, which is Hartford.
Or, of course, there's always the option of moving to somewhere else in Connecticut or somewhere around.
I'm sure there's some places in New Haven they could go to.
Otakon wasn't in Baltimore for a while.
Yeah. There are lots of other cities in Connecticut. I think Stamford has some places you could be in. Hartford, Connecticut isn't the only city in Connecticut that's big enough to handle an anime convention of this size.
All right, regarding the crappy bags, quote, all conventions this year have been really hit as far as bag sponsors. The anime companies are really hurting with the closing of Suncoast and other retailers, and providing bags is often a $10,000 investment for them. Even Anime Boston had to run around to local stores like Newbury Comics to try to get enough bags. We often supplement our bag supply with the extras of Anime Boston. We had pretty much no bags, so it was either bum some from the Best Buy or have no bags. We decided that having crappy bags is better than no bags for the use in the dealer's room, since not all dealers have bags. We didn't fill them with goodies because we weren't provided with much. See the sponsors blurb. Now, I can see that. That makes perfect sense, and my only thing I would say is that I wouldn't have put the program guide in the bag and given it out, because that honestly just looked kind of cheap. I would have had the bags available at the entrance to the dealer's room.
Yeah, usually you get a bag at registration because it's filled with all sorts of free advertising shit. If it only has the program guide in it, why are you giving me a bag? The bag is to hold other advertising in with the program guide.
But in terms of the whole anime industry bit, Brianna is pretty much dead on. The anime industry in the U.S. is, at least for the past few years, has been hitting some hard times.
It's the way I've heard it explained, I don't remember where I heard this, possibly Anime World Order, again, is that, Media Play was like the big, and Suncoast and all, what was Musicland, that whole company was the big anime purchaser, and whether people were buying anime from them, it didn't matter. It was the fact that they were buying anime from the anime companies. Therefore, the anime companies made a lot of money as Media Play existed. And the belief of those companies was that anime is the way you're going to make big bucks, because you can get DVDs and charge them, full price, MSRP, and they're going to sell. And you're not going to have to compete with the Best Buy or anyone and start selling your DVDs at like $15, $13, to get one lower than the other store down the street with the blockbuster hits. Especially since CDs aren't selling that well anymore either.
Yeah.
And the GameStops and EVs are killing them on video games. And I think what's happened is there's been a shift in the DVD industry away from anime being what's going to make you the big bucks to TV on DVD being what's going to make you the big bucks, selling, seasons of this, seasons of that, and therefore these the stores like Best Buy and everyone are buying less anime, and Media Play no longer exists, so there's not too many retailers buying up lots and lots of stuff. So the anime companies are only selling selling a number of DVDs closer to what actual fans are buying from them, and not what retailers are buying.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's also the fact that there haven't been many big properties in the last few years. I mean, Full Metal Alchemist was huge, but because a lot of people watched it on, download, BitTorrent, whatnot.
Cartoon Network.
Yeah, that too. And now that the economy is kind of down, a lot of people who would normally buy, every box set that comes out that either don't have enough money or there aren't so many they're interested in. I mean, of all the anime I've bought recently, it's mostly really, really old stuff that I've always wanted, and now's the time to buy it because there's nothing new to buy.
Yep. And the other thing is, like, the companies that are killing on anime, which is like Cartoon Network and WB shows anime, right? And all those guys never sponsor any cons. It's the Vizes and the the Tokyo Pops and the EDVs that are, and Funimation, of course, that need to sell this stuff. And they're not doing as well.
Yep, so there's really nothing you can do about that.
Yeah, Funimation is killing. Viz and Tokyo Pop are killing on the manga, but ADV not doing what he used to do.
All right, now in regards to the program book, quote, "It seems that you ask us somehow to have descriptions of the programming in the schedule. I'm not sure how this would be possible. In regards to the pocket schedule, we greatly want to have it, but the cost would be the equivalent of the rest of our entire program book. We really want to have this, but it will be a while before finances are forgiving enough to allow it. In regards to the full-color program book, I normally veto all suggestions that involve spending money, but I was outruled on this issue. Additionally, we believe that a full-color program book would look better to sponsors for the next year, thereby hopefully improving our financial standing, allowing for a pocket program schedule, etc." Honestly, if you hadn't spent the money on the full-color book, you probably could have gotten the pocket schedule instead.
Or the $5 bills.
Well, that wouldn't have been enough money for the $5 bills.
It would have been some $5 bills.
I guess for me, the pocket schedule doesn't have to be anything fancy like a lot of other cons do. It could have
been an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. Just a slightly thicker piece of paper. I mean,
not
isn't
even
that
that. I would have been happy with like 2 pieces of 8.5 by 11 paper stapled together with just a densely printed schedule.
What did Anime Next had? They had like it was like a 2 pieces of paper, but it was sort of like a legal piece of paper folded in half, right?
Yeah, it was real wide, and you could fold it, and it had the entire schedule on it.
Yeah, and it was only like shitty color. It wasn't like color.
Yeah,
Otakon puts theirs in black and white. They don't care.
Yeah, you really could have had I'm sure you could have had some sort of pocket schedule, and I really think the con should look into it.
Yeah, just don't try to put too much into the pocket schedule. Think, do it light.
I mean, it should really just look like a spreadsheet out of Microsoft Office and nothing more.
Yep. Just, tidied up a little. Don't put those dotted lines all over make it easy to read and simple and full of the most important information you can fit on a page.
Now, in regards to the making it look nice for sponsors, I don't have much to say about that. I'm glad to see that Connecticon is at least forward-thinking as to how they're going to be solvent in the future, and that's one way to go about it. I haven't really thought about that issue too deeply.
Yeah, the thing is looking good for sponsors, but they had a bunch of sponsors. What were they doing?
Well, we can get to that with the next bit.
Oh, okay.
Quote, regarding sponsors, quote, "None of our sponsors actually gave us money. We decided to give various companies the full treatment so that they get a taste of what sponsoring with us in the future gives them. Best Buy provided us with loaner flat screen TVs. Funagirls gave us some cool prize support. Funimation was supposed to give us some goodies, which didn't happen, yada, yada, yada. We basically wanted to pimp out a couple companies in order to show companies the advertising we can provide in hopes of gaining further support from these companies and other companies next year." Yep,
on the one hand, it's kind of good. It's like, hey, if those companies, were thinking poorly of Connecticon and didn't want to sponsor it because they thought it wasn't worth their time, you were able to prove to them that it, possibly was worth their time. And, that's a good thing. But on the other hand, if you give it away for free and maybe they didn't get what they wanted, now when you try to charge for it, maybe they'd be like, no, screw you. It's a tough call.
No, I think it's actually a good thing because I'm not sure how it'll turn out. But like I said in the previous bit, I'm very glad to see the con at least considering options and thinking long-term as opposed to short-term.
Yeah, I still would have, I wouldn't have an official sponsor of a con without them, doing something. It's like, hey, you sponsored the con, we put your logo on things, and you don't do anything for us. It's like, okay.
But why not? I mean, worst case, they didn't lose anything.
That's true.
And if the company decides not to go with them next year, they still haven't lost anything.
Yeah, but they also haven't gained anything that they greatly needed.
So if you didn't lose anything, then who cares if you didn't gain anything? You're even. You might if the worst case scenario.
The question is, could they have gained something?
What do you mean?
Well, if let's say they didn't make sponsorship free, could they have gotten sponsors to pay?
Why bother? They obviously were solvent without that this year anyway. And a con that has already had a lot of financial trouble suddenly approaching a bunch of sponsors and wanting money probably isn't going to go over so well. This way they can show that, one, they were solvent without sponsors. Two, they'd treat sponsors very well in the future. I think it was a fairly good decision on their part. I mean, the fact is the con was in a very tricky situation monetarily anyway, and there's really no easy way out of the situation they're in.
Yeah.
Even though, honestly, I think if they moved to a hotel, the situation would be greatly mitigated.
I don't know, I'm just 50-50 on it. It's like, it could be this, it could be that, you know? Like, if someone, like, it would be like, should we give away free ads on Geeknights and then be like, yeah, now you can see how many people visit you, and then will they actually pay us if we ask for money later, you know?
Yeah.
It's just the shareware lesson, you know? If you give someone shareware for free, how many times they actually buy it? Not so many.
Yeah, but who cares? They didn't lose anything.
Yeah, until they hack your shareware. And then
But you can't hack a convention.
I know, I'm just being silly.
I mean, what? The closest thing to hacking the convention were the $1 Geek Squad shirts.
Oh, yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No, not really.
In fact, I saw a couple of people who claimed that they were cosplaying as Best Buy guys, which was moderately funny.
Yeah, of course, Geek Squad is terrible. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah. But anyway, the email goes on for a while, other little points. But I'm really happy that Brianna took the time to respond to us, and I'm glad that we could give our response in kind to the response. Because once again, Connecticon wasn't a bad con by any means, and it has a lot of potential.
Yep. It's just yet to be fulfilled potential.
Yep, we'll see what happens next year, because I think, especially now that they've got a successful year under their belt, that next year will go a lot smoother.
I think what we'll do is we'll just wait for friends who are there on Friday, give us a call, tell us what's going down.
I might go for the whole weekend. We'll see.
We'll see.
Because I'll see about doing the Geeknights panel there, or taking over the Anime Club panel, because they obviously are hurting for someone to do it, and we do it everywhere else already.
Yeah, if they're doing something like that, any con that we have a panel or something, I'll have to go to.
Any con, eh? Because I could get you a panel at a con you wouldn't want to go to.
Okay, well, I would just go do the panel and go home.
All right.
What con are you going to do? like GawiCon?
You have no idea. Things of the day.
Oh, my.
Mine's real quick. Now, a lot of people in the forums have been asking, and someone's reminded me outside of the forums, that a while ago I talked about an anime music video that was really good. And I said I'd post a link, and I never did. So I didn't have a great thing of the day for today, so here we go. My thing of the day is that anime music video that I neglected to post.
Talk about a cop-out.
Yeah, what do you want? Actually, it works because it's a really good AMV.
It is a pretty good AMV. I think a lot of the appeal has to do with the song, which is a really good song that's really good lyrically, and young punk kids won't know the song.
Yeah.
I mean, I barely knew the song.
Yeah, the song is one of those songs that has a funny name, and I forget the name off. It's something and Terminus, but everyone knows it as the 2525 song.
Yep.
In the year.
Well, at least, people who don't know about it.
Yeah, so all of us new punk kids have heard the song.
Exactly.
Now, the thing is, the video didn't actually win anything normal at Otakon. No one voted for it, but it was so badass.
Well, I'm sure someone voted for it.
Well, not enough people.
Yeah.
It was so badass that the people in charge of the AMV contest at Otakon gave it an award, like the judge's pick or something.
Yeah, it was like the editor's choice equivalent.
And it was probably the best music video of the whole con.
Well, at least for us, the kind of music videos that we like.
Yeah, it really does seem to say something that the kinds of music videos that a lot of younger fans like are the Naruto, people fighting with each other, funny, but not so much funny even, just, fighting scenes and quick cuts and action.
Yeah, it's all about the beat mix. If the beat of the video matches the beat of the audio, then you got a good video.
Yeah, but back in the day, it seems like the popular videos were the really, really funny ones, or else the really, really serious.
Well, it's not so much the funny, but the clever.
Yeah.
It was all about the cleverness. Like, aha, you were funny in a clever way. Because it's easy to just, I mean, let's say if I took a funny an anime that's already hilarious, and then I made an AMV of it, it's not hard to be funny still. It's hard to be cleverly funny.
Yeah, well, it's like if you hear the song Crawling by Linkin Park and you think, hey, that sounds a lot like Shinji. I'll do an Ava music video to that anime. That's not clever. Everyone thought that.
You know what we should do is we should take Nana and make an AMV, but only when they have funny faces. Only funny faces.
We just need the right song for that.
Does anyone know any good songs about funny faces? Yeah, let's think on that.
But anyway, if you don't like anime music videos, if you like anime music videos, whatever, I highly recommend you download this video and watch it. If you don't like them, it'll probably change your mind. If you do like them, this might show you a kind of video that isn't so well known these days.
And not frequently made these days.
Yeah.
And whoever made it, mad props to you. We don't know who you are, and we can't give you
Well, we
credit.
do know. I'm linking to his anime music video page.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I didn't know who it was.
Yeah, not only that, but he wrote a long thing about why he picked what anime he picked and how he put it all together and how this is the second version of this video.
Yeah.
I like stuff like that.
Yeah.
I like meta information about anything I like.
It's sort of like a DVD extra.
Yeah.
All right. My thing today is real short. It's real short. It's a tiny, tiny clip of video from Japanese TV. I don't know what show, I don't know what, but there's some cops, Japanese cops. And then there's Darth Vader. And
that's it.
And you'll see the joke when you watch it, but it's a pretty nice, it's a good quick joke of Japanese police and Darth Vader.
I mean, it's set up just like the beginning of episode 4, where, you know, there's the door and the people waiting, and then Darth Vader busts in, but then it's just Darth Vader, and then something funny happens.
And that's it. It's real quick, and it should make you laugh, which is why it's a good pick.
We can't ruin it. It's just too funny.
No, not going to ruin it.
All right, so today, because we went long in the first bit talking about Connecticon and all that, which I'm sure we're going to talk about more in the future too, because
probably next year when there's another Connecticon.
Yeah, not only that, but I really want to talk to the staffers and the people at Connecticon to at least give more detailed advice. And I mean, Connecticon's a good con, and I really want it to succeed.
And maybe we can get more information out of them.
Yeah, and in return, I'm sure we could get more people to go to Connecticon. I mean,
or maybe we could convince them to go to a hotel.
Yeah. But I mean, think of this. If we brought the whole front row crew to Connecticon, that would be a significant chunk.
Yeah, that would be a significant portion of the convention population.
Wow. All right, yeah, we'll have to think on that.
Like, the front row crew could probably, like, conquer the game room. All right.
All right, so we instead of talking at length about Arcadia of my youth, which we're instead going to talk about next week.
Yep. We're going to talk about a comic because we hardly ever talk about comics.
Not only that, but
even though it's listed right there, Anime Manga Comics Wednesdays.
Yep, and 2 people have actually asked us to, you know, lean toward comics a little bit because we've been neglecting them.
The main reason we neglect them is because I read enough of them and Rim doesn't read enough of them. So if I talk about them, it's pretty much just me talking and Rim going,
Yeah, well, let's see what I've been reading lately. I mean, Scott Pilgrim, which a lot of people call it a manga, though it's not. It's a comic, but I mean, it's in trade form, so it doesn't.
Well, it's a digest.
It's not
manga. Whatever.
It's not a comic the way most people think of the word comic.
Yeah, whatever. It's all, as far as I'm concerned, they are all works of graphic literature.
Yeah,
and the publishing format matters not as so much.
I think it's just that we don't read so many traditional comics, and I don't read any. I mean, the one I read just now, right before the show that we're going to talk about, is the first non-Scott Pilgrim comic I've read since I tried to read that Captain Marvel thing.
Yeah.
And I couldn't finish that. I couldn't deal with it.
Yeah. I think now that they've canceled Marvel Team Up, they're really, like, I'm not getting any superhero comics, really. Like, there's almost none, except for old ones.
Well, that one...
it's like I'm trying to get all the old great ones that I've missed without, getting any of the common crap.
Well, I'm kind of interested in that Fables kind of one about X-Men. It's like the X-Men story.
Oh, X-Men fairy tales.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm actually really interested.
See, but that's not really a superhero comic. That's a fairy tale comic that just happens to, they put a little bit of X-Men hints in there.
Yeah,
to
you know what it is?
Fanboys buy it.
It's like those awesome posters we see in artist alleys at cons. That's like a character from one anime, but they're dressed up as a character from another anime.
Yeah, actually, it's the guy who I'll talk about it. We could read it and then talk about it when it's done.
Yep.
It's only going to be 4 issues long, and I've already got 2 of them. So
Yeah, and the other thing I was reading that I really liked was Ex Machina, but Scott Johnson borrowed all of it, and now I can't read it until he gives it back.
yeah, that's still going on. So there'll be more volumes in the coming months.
Yeah, but I really like it.
Yeah, it's really good. All right. But today we decided to talk about the first trade of 100 Bullets,
Now,
which is a comic from Vertigo.
Scott and a couple other people had told me about this before, and I just hadn't gotten around to it. So, because we wanted to do a somewhat short episode, Scott ripped it out of his room, and I read it just now. And this thing...
I read it earlier today.
Now, the thing is, everyone who had told me about it, the concept sounds really awesome. I mean, the concept is just, all right, say there's this magic government whatever where you can give someone a gun with 100 bullets in it. And those bullets are marked in such a way that if anyone investigates the shooting or anything that happens with this gun or this ammo, as soon as they find these bullets, the investigation is dropped, all records of it are deleted, it's as though it never happened.
Basically, if someone comes up to you and gives you the gun and says, here's a gun, here's 100 bullets, do what you want, you're above the law. You can just go around killing people, and you won't get in trouble, and nothing will happen to you, and you won't go to prison. If cops come and harass you, then they'll let you go real quick, and yeah.
Yeah, a total carte blanche to kill whoever you want to kill.
Without consequences of law, but who knows about other consequences of, but there won't be any legal governmental consequences.
Now, at its root, this sounds like an awesome concept for a comic or a novel or a movie or anything.
I've noticed there are, like, a lot of the comics I'm picking up, like a lot of the ones where I just pick up the number 1, are like these awesome concepts. Like some guy comes up with this crazy idea that wouldn't work in a movie or a TV show or anything. But in a comic, you can do any crazy idea you want.
What was that one we saw at Otakon? I think it was 2 years ago. It was a rhinoceros who was a hitman, but everyone else was just a human. But for some reason, this guy was a rhinoceros.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
I forget who it was or what it was, but that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So, when you if you come up with a really great premise for a story, comics are always the great place to go. I mean, the American comic industry has really just become R&D for the movie industry.
Yeah.
It's like they make some Spider-Man comics, they figure out what works, and then they make a Spider-Man movie, So this has a really great premise, but still, I don't know if I'm going to buy any more than the first one.
I was really, really underwhelmed by this.
I was moderately underwhelmed. Like, I think the problem was I had a really high expectation, and it wasn't met.
Yeah. Well, to me, it was that, one, you have the concept, right? The 100 bullets above the law thing.
And that's why my expectation was high, because the premise was quality.
Yet, the actual premise is almost hardly even looked at least in the first story. The very first story is very long in this book, and yet the vast majority of it is completely unrelated to the 100 bullets. It's just these ghetto thugs yelling at each other.
Yeah, it really feels like I'm watching some police show on, primetime TV, like a CSI or any of those cops. Well, not cops, but, any of those shows. Those police shows that are on TV that I don't watch because I don't have TV.
I mean, girl in prison, gets out of prison, given the gun, turns out that some cops were the ones who killed her husband and child.
And then there's a slight twist ending, which was kind of actually okay.
But the bulk of it is just her hanging out with all her different homies, and they're all talking to each other in... Now, the accents and the speaking are very much represented in the writing, which made it very difficult to read for me.
Yeah, it also made it hard for me to read. I pretty much just, skipped over a whole lot of it because, half of it wasn't even important. It was just, setup and too much setup.
Yeah, it wasn't even useful setup. I mean, a lot of it was just people talking to each other about stupid crap I don't care about, to the point that I just skipped it all, and then, I'd flip. All right, they stopped talking, the gun's back. What's going on?
Yep. Yeah, I think the first story is actually, 3 issues of comic book long.
Yeah, it was real long, which just dragged it out, and I lost interest to the point that I was just kind of hoping in every scene that she would shoot him and get it over with.
Yeah, they really could have fit it in fewer issues. I mean, the first story. But
now, the second one was a little better. It went more with the concept.
Yep.
Except that, again, it didn't really go anywhere, and it was even aside from the implausibility of the gun thing, it was even less plausible.
Yeah, it was like when it got to the computer stuff, I was like, just what? What's going on? That's just, it makes no sense.
I mean, it was like hackers computing.
Basically, the story is there's a guy, and he's a bartender, I think. And he used to be an awesome restaurant guy, but his career was ruined, and his whole life was ruined when he was framed of being a child pornographer. And basically, the guy comes and gives him the gun, and, he says, here's the gun, here's the bullets, you won't get in trouble. Here's evidence to prove that this is the person who did it, and then that person, just kind of miraculously shows up.
Now, the thing is, the story was good, except that it totally petered out at the end. Like, when you find out the reason she framed him, it was just such a letdown. Like, it was the most anticlimactic thing I've read in a comic.
The first story had that kind of twist at the end, which is like the only good part of that story. The second story, just, if it would have had a twist like the first one, it would have been great. But it didn't.
It didn't have a twist so much as it had that unrelated thing with the people shooting at each other in the helicopter.
Yeah, I don't know what that was
That
about.
has to be set up for yet another story or something random. Or I mean, it felt like in Watchmen where they had like the parallel, like two people would be talking, but then they wouldn't show the two people. They'd show an unrelated scene, like something going on in the street that was actually parallel to the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But this was just like random and completely unrelated and crazy.
See, now, I look at this comic, and there's actually like three things going on, right? There's number one, in any individual story arc, there's the story of, whoever got the gun and what their situation is, right? And I care about that, but the problem is that story isn't, there's two of them in here, and they're both not the greatest stories.
Yeah, they're pretty meh.
Yeah, they're kind of average.
Now, there's also the story of, because they seem to be following the thread of, why is this gun here? Why is this person giving it out? He has a plan.
The other two things are the story of the guy who's giving the gun out, and then the story of the gun itself and, what's happening with it.
Now, don't get the impression that I'm saying that these stories are meh. I want to hear more about the guy with the gun.
Because I really don't want to hear about the guy with the gun.
I was hoping that the whatever the gun was would never be explained, and like you wouldn't even care about it. I expected a whole bunch of unrelated stories with how people would deal with this responsibility and how people would deal with this gun. And if they went into a plot about, oh, well, the guy with the gun did it because he wants to do this and get these people, I don't care about that.
Well, see, I do. The guy.
Well, if the story were that, if the story was just that, I'd be cool with it.
Well, the thing is I think it feels to me, I don't know because I haven't read anymore, that the story is going to eventually, like later on, as you go on, you'll find out more and more about the guy with the gun. But the guy with the gun, I'd like him. I don't want to know about him. I want him to be like a faceless G-man, It's the gun itself, I'd like to always be, wondering what its story was like. Hey, how come, you can do this and not get caught? And, who exactly way up is doing something? I'd like, I don't want to actually find it out, but I want to find it out all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I guess a story like this, this concept either has to be all the individual stories of people with the gun or the mystery of where the gun came from.
I think I don't know if it's going to, I don't know, but it feels like it's going to start out being stories of people with the gun and eventually be, the other one. Like it's going to do both.
Except the second story
That's what my instinct tells me, although I have no evidence.
The second story almost right away goes into like the person who was the recipient of the gun loses, and the person he was supposed to kill then goes off on this thing like she's going to be some sort of recurring character. Like they set it up to where she kind of knows what's going on.
Yeah. You see, that's how come I have the feeling that the story will evolve. They'll keep showing you individual stories of people who get the gun, and along the way you'll learn more and more and more about the gun itself and the guy who's giving it out. And that's what comics do.
Yeah. It was really kind of unimpressive, and it feels like the concept is solid, but it follows the wrong characters for the wrong amounts of time and focuses on the things that I don't care about while not even going into the stuff I want to see.
Yep. What I think I'd like to do is look up and see if the same guy, right, is writing this book, like all of it. What would be really cool is if they just said, hey, anyone who wants to, or get a whole bunch of different people to write stories about someone who gets a gun with 100 bullets that are untraceable. And that way you'd see a whole bunch of different stuff. Because, the stories that this guy's writing, they're not the greatest in the world, to be honest.
Just the pacing's off, everything's off.
Yeah. If they got someone else to write, stories on the same premise, that could be really cool. Like, maybe they, get 10 guys together and say, okay, everyone write, 36-page comic about, this premise.
What this would be good in is like, remember when Yuko and Brian were in that compilation of, here is a setting or here is a thing, everyone writes stories around it.
Mm-hmm.
Just have a compilation book. The book is 100 bullets, and then everyone has their story in it.
Yep. I think this is also a victim of, the publishing in the United States. This thing is actually coming out in comic book issues every month. And then this is like the first, I don't know how many issues.
If I'd picked up the first 1 or 2 issues
I
of
never
this,
would have bought another one.
I would have put it right back down because it just felt like it wasn't going anywhere.
Yep. It's really, if this was just like one trade, just, we're going to make a book. Here is the whole thing at once. There are, 10 different stories about this gun. The end.
I mean,
that's something I would have bought.
Here's how it feels. Imagine you're going to see The Matrix, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they reveal that he's in The Matrix. Spoiler, whatever. And then, he's learning about this Matrix thing. And then for a half hour in the movie, it shows him just like walking around in the Matrix talking to people. Or just like none of the plot or anything, just something completely unrelated that you don't care about. Like show him masturbating in the bathroom.
Yeah, it's like they show you characters like having, the moral dilemma. Like, oh, look, this guy has a moral dilemma. He's got a gun and can kill people, but at the same time, he won't get away with it. But he's going to feel bad, and he is killing someone and all that jazz. But they don't actually explore it. They just put people in the situation. You see the person in the situation. You see what they do. But you don't act, they're not really exploring any of the morals or anything like that. They're just putting them on show.
Yeah, it's a very superficial treatment of what could be a very interesting idea.
Yeah, they could have gone a lot deeper. Like, show the guy going like, oh, what do I do? Blah, blah, blah. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think I'll read any more.
No, I don't think I'm going to get any more either. But yeah, so we talked about comics, all you people who want us to talk about comics more.
Yep. If you really want us to talk about comics, suggest some. Because
oh, there actually was that one single comic story at the end that was tacked on.
Oh, I didn't even read that.
Oh, the one with the old lady? Basically, yeah.
I flipped through it and I realized that it wasn't related to what I was reading, so I stopped.
Yeah, there was. Basically, it's a one comic story about this old lady who apparently had the gun a long time ago. And she killed someone, and she comes in to confess, and they're like, there's nothing about that, so yeah, you just go on.
Huh.
And then at the end, like, some other guy is given the gun or something, and it's, it's just like a little tiny twist story on its own.
See, again, even there, it sounds like the story's just focused on the things I don't care about, and completely skip everything I actually want to read a story about.
Yeah. Oh, it's just, someone comes up with a good premise, and then they don't, execute it and use it in the correct way.
Well, at least the correct way to get Rim and Scott to read it.
Oh, exactly.
So if anyone has read this and disagrees, I don't know, you could send us a geekback.
Yeah, geekbacks are cool. Maybe we could talk about more comics later. Try to find something that doesn't that's awesome. It seems like a lot of comics that are just based on a premise only seem to like not always turn out to be the greatest things in the world.
Well, like Teen Boat was a really funny idea, but I can't see myself reading much more of that.
Yeah, it's like, I read, two issues of Teen Boat, and it was funny. Haha, a teen who turns into a boat. Haha, pirates. Okay, it's not funny anymore, but it's an ongoing series, and, I guess the guy's making more Teen Boat, I guess, and you figure out, you go through. It's just because comics in America keep, they shoot for ongoing stuff. things end up that way, where even if it's, the premise is only good for a short bit, they just keep going with it, and they write it in such a way that it can keep going somewhere. I don't know. It'd be much better if just each issue of this comic was one story, a good story, that was interesting. You didn't, you had the same premise of a guy gets 100 bullets in a gun and, he won't get in trouble. But you never explain why or how or who's giving it to him or anything like that. You just, there it is. You don't need an explanation. And then each issue is just a story. And then if somehow it gets canceled, you just stop making issues. And it's like you never, it doesn't matter. All right.
Yeah, but anyway, next week we'll probably review Arcadia of My Youth, which we finally got around to watching.
Hooray! Maybe we can watch a lot more of that Harlock action in the future.
We'll also have another Geekback. It's old and we haven't gotten around to it a while, but one of our listeners went to Anime Expo, and we have his thoughts on the relative level of awesome that con is.
We're going to have to go to that con eventually.
You know what? I have absolutely no desire to, other than from a purely journalistic perspective. I have never heard anyone say good things about that con. And at least anyone that I would trust.
It's sort of just like, the San Diego Comic-Con of anime. It's just the whole anime industry is there. There's crazy guests, and there's crazy happenings, and there's just a sea of people.
Yeah, there's quote-unquote 40,000 people.
Yep, which we don't know.
Yeah. But most of the people who go seem to say that it's boring, or there's not much to do, or it's just like the industry telling you things.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to have the awesome fan stuff. Like, you're not going to go there and find an awesome game room. You're not going to go there and find, us running an awesome panel. You're not going to go there and find like a crazy, awesome artist alley.
Yeah, it's like E3, but at least E3 you can play video games.
Yep. I guess you can watch anime at Anime Expo.
But we're already watching everything that's out in Japan right now.
I know.
What could Anime Expo possibly offer? Unless...
That's what Otakon does so great, is they offer the things that you're probably, haven't seen on BitTorrent, and you probably haven't seen already, or couldn't buy on DVD in the store easily.
Yeah, or the thing that you never would have thought to watch, but was actually awesome.
The thing you wouldn't know to watch. The thing you didn't know existed. That's what it's all about.
And that was Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for our opening theme.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com. If you like our podcasts, you'll love our forums. Make sure you visit them. You can send your email feedback to geeknights@gmail.com. And if you want, you can leave us a voicemail at 206-333-1537.
Geeknights airs every weeknight, Monday through Thursday.
Geeknights is recorded with absolutely no studio and no audience. But unlike those other talk shows, it's actually recorded at night.